Hi everyone, my name is Jake Meyer and I am back to talk about some more clarinet stuff today. In this video I'm going to be talking about some really basic clarinet repair. So as you all can see and as you all know very well, our clarinet has a ton of keys and pads, levers, screws, and springs all over it. Which is part of what makes the clarinet so cool, but it also makes it possible for it to sometimes get out of adjustment. And if our clarinet is not in perfect adjustment, sometimes certain notes won't come out, or sometimes we just can't get the clarinet to make any sound at all. When this happens, we get a little nervous and stressed out and think that we broke it and it needs to go into the repair shop to get fixed. I find with myself and with a lot of my students that a lot of the things when our clarinet is out of adjustment, a lot of these things are really easy to fix at home all by yourself. You do not need a repair person to fix these. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to walk you through a couple really basic problems that sometimes come up and then give you some ways to fix them. Alright, so the very first thing that I always check when sound won't come out of my clarinet, or when maybe it sounds like there's like a little air leak or notes won't quite come out. The first thing I always check is 1 and 1. This is called 1 and 1 because you use your first finger and your first finger on both of your hands. This is really important because when you play this B flat key right here, two things happen. This pad, this little silver pad right here moves, and this silver pad right here moves. If those pads don't close all the way, if they don't seal completely, some air is going to leak out, and then if there's air leaking out, then oftentimes a lot of the other notes that are farther down on the clarinet won't come out at all. This is really easy to check. You just push down on your B flat key, and then you tap up here, and you tap right here. If these keys are completely closed, if they're sealing all the way, you don't have to do anything. You're good to go. If for some reason they're not closing all the way, I'll tell you how to fix it. We have this cool thing on our clarinet right here, which is called the bridge key, and it bridges the top joint and the bottom joint. Most bridge keys have little lines on it that tell you exactly how to line it up center. So the first thing you should do is make sure that your bridge key is lined up. It's a little hard to see on my clarinet because I have these side keys right here. So do you, actually. But there are these little lines on your bridge key that sort of tell you exactly how it should be lined up. So you should do that first. And then if for some reason it still doesn't close all the way, then you know that it's just not quite an adjustment, and you should try offsetting those lines by putting your bridge key a little to the left. Test it again, maybe put it a little to the right, test it again. My clarinet is actually not perfectly lined up with my bridge key. It's a little bit to the left, and that really doesn't matter very much. If you want to have it perfectly lined up or have it a special way, you can take it to a repair shop and they will fix it for you. They'll do it exactly how you want. Doesn't really matter, I think. So since my lines are not perfect, I don't really care. I just know that when I put my clarinet together, I need to offset my bridge key a tiny, tiny bit to the left. And maybe you'll just have to remember that from now on, you need to offset your bridge key a tiny bit to the left or the right. So that's the first thing. We always want to make sure that our 1 and 1 seals. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing, I see this all the time with my students, and this is probably the thing that I have to fix most on my own clarinet. When you play B, you're probably playing it this way. I call this together B because I'm using both of my pinkies together. But sometimes, depending on what notes I'm playing or the scale I'm playing, I might only play B with my left pinky. I call this left B because it's only my left pinky. Sometimes, when I play B with only my left pinky, it won't come out. Maybe you have noticed that too. Okay, just think about this for a second. When we push B way up here, it has to travel all the way down this lever, and then it forces this key and this key to move. That is a really, really long way. When we add this C key right here, it adds a little extra pressure and helps it close. If you're only playing with this, sometimes these keys won't close all the way. Okay, this is really easy to fix, really easy to test out. all you do is push down on your B key, and then you tap your C key. Right now, my clarinet is in really good adjustment with this, but yours might not be. It is not in adjustment if you can hear that kind of clicking, popping, tapping sound. You hear that? Versus this where there's nothing. Okay, if your clarinet isn't closing all the way when you play this B, it means that one of these keys isn't closing. So all you do is you push down right here for your left hand B, and then you tap this. And then you can look, or you can hear, or feel which one isn't closing all the way. For me, and for most of my students, it's usually the C key. It's the higher one. This is really easy to fix. Super easy to fix. Here's what you do. You take your right thumb, and do you see this little metal pad right here? You're going to take your thumb and you're going to brace it right underneath that because we don't want it to move. You're not going to push. You're just going to hold it right here so this can't move. All right? Oh. Okay. Left thumb, you're going to take the C key and you are very, very gently and slowly and carefully going to push. You're going to literally bend this key back into place. It's open too far, so we have to bend it back down. All right, so I just add a little pressure. You see how my thumb is just sort of wiggling a little bit? I'm just very gently wiggling and pushing. I don't want to bend it too far. If you bend it too far, you're going to have to do the opposite thing to unbend it back. So you just bend a little bit, and then you test. If there's no sound coming out of it, you're good to go. If there's still a popping or a clicking sound, then you have to go farther. All right, this one happens to me all the time. I've gotten really good at fixing it. I've had students who've gotten really good at fixing it. It's a little scary at first because we don't like to think about actually bending our clarinet, but this is what a repair person would do if you brought it into them. So don't be afraid. Just be very careful and go slowly. If you are not comfortable doing this, maybe you can ask your band director to help you, or you could ask somebody at home who might be able to help too. All right, great. The next thing that we're going to talk about is our A key. I've never really had a problem with this before, but once I moved to online lessons, I had a lot of students who all of a sudden had this problem, which is a little unusual, but it is what it is. So when we play our A, there is a tiny clear screw on the G sharp key right above the A key. When we play our A key, do you see right now? There should be a teeny tiny bit of give, a teeny tiny bit of motion before our A key pushes up on the G sharp key. Now, if you don't have any give, what's happening is that this key is actually open or slightly open all the time. If this key is open, no sound is going to come out of the rest of your clarinet because this is the first open hole. All the sound is going to come out of that hole. Nothing will come out farther down, which could be a really big problem and make us think our clarinet is broken. But super easy to fix. You need to have a tiny, tiny bit of give before your A key touches that screw. So the screw is right here. It's right here. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So you're going to turn the screw just a teeny tiny bit to the left. You're going to test it again. As long as there's a tiny bit of give before you push up, you're good. Okay, so if sound really is not coming out of your clarinet and you've tried the 1-in-1, this would be a good thing to just double check. Doesn't happen very often, I think, but it could be. Okay, I've had a couple students have this problem recently. When you are in your clarion register, your upper register with the register key, sometimes the notes don't come out. Okay, you've already tried 1-in-1, you've tried your B adjustment, you've tried your A adjustment. Sometimes we get a little bit of water inside of our register key. all right? And that makes it really hard for the sound to come out because there's a lot of resistance and stuffiness. So what I do is I swab my clarinet because there's probably a lot of water in your clarinet, and then I suck the water out. So I open my register key, I put my lips right on top of the key, and then I suck the water out. You might want to try blowing back in. Okay, and then I like sucking out. So you can kind of test that out. I had a couple students who had this problem recently. I thought it was a little unusual, but it happens to me sometimes too. If you ever have water, you know, I get water coming out of my side keys, my C-sharp key, some of my pinky keys. I get water coming out of those keys all the time. You can do the same thing. You just and then swab, because after we play for a really long time, we get lots of water in here. All right? Okay, so we've talked about 1 and 1, we've talked about B, we've talked about A, and we've talked about our register key. Now, here's the thing. If you still can't get a sound to come out, or if there's still problems on your clarinet and for some reason you can't figure it out, one of those other 4 things hasn't happened, the best thing to do is to take your barrel off, okay? And then we're gonna take our whole top joint off, and we need to find out where the leak is. We need to find out where something isn't closing all the way. So we're gonna make a vacuum. We're gonna make a suction seal, all right? So we're gonna play a C. We're going to close all of the holes. I use my middle finger because it's big enough. You might have to use your thumb, or you could use the whole palm of your hand. But we're going to close off the bottom. We're going to close off the bottom. And then you're going to put your mouth, your lips, on top of the top of your clarinet. And then you're going to suck all of the air out of your clarinet. And then, did you hear that? You hear that pop? I've created a vacuum inside my clarinet. There's no air. I've sucked all of the air out. And then when I open one of these holes, air sucks back into the clarinet really quick, and that's what makes that pop. Okay? If you can make a seal, like me, your clarinet is probably closing all the way. But if you try that, and for some reason there's air coming back into your clarinet, that means that somewhere there is a key that is not closing all the way. And you need to get your detective hat on now and try to figure out what key it is. It's probably one of these side keys, but it really could be anything. If you want to try an alternative, you can try gently blowing into your clarinet. And if you hear a little hissing sound, that means air is coming out of a key, all right? You can do the same thing on your bottom joint. It's a little harder because the bottom is so huge. I have to use my whole hand, but I just close it off. I play my low E. As long as everything holds and you can make a suction, you're good. All right, one last thing. Sometimes on my clarinet, or your clarinet, we have all these corks, all right? And sometimes corks disintegrate and they fall off. Now this happens. Corks get old, they break, they fall off. It happens all the time. Corks need to be replaced at some point. So there's no getting around that. But there are 2 things that you can do to help your corks. So the first thing is that when you put cork grease on, only put a little bit. You don't need a lot. And then only put cork grease on when you need it. All right? So sometimes people put it on every single time, and that's actually really bad for your corks because the cork grease will sink in. It will seep in and get sucked into the cork, and then eventually the glue that is holding the cork onto the clarinet is going to come undone, and the whole cork is going to start to disintegrate and fall apart. So if you use too much cork grease, your corks will not last as long, and they will start falling off, and they'll break and they'll crumble, right? So the first thing is just only use cork grease when you need to, and only use a little bit every time. Okay, sometimes there's no avoiding your cork falling off. And so what I do is I take a little piece of paper like this, and I just rip off a little strip just like this. All right. What you can, if your corks are falling off or they're getting really old and icky, you're gonna have to take them in to get to a repair shop. That's not something that we can just do on our own. So you're gonna have to take it in, but in the meantime, to save it, to make sure it stays on, you can wrap this little piece of paper all the way around the cork, and it will hopefully help it, stick together a little bit longer. And then you just take your barrel, or maybe it's your mouthpiece, or maybe it's your middle joint or your bottom joint, and you just put it back on. Okay, now, my corks are all in really good shape right now. So I don't need this, and you can see that I can't put my clarinet on any farther because it's tight. But if your clarinet is loose for some reason, like maybe you got a new barrel or you got a new mouthpiece or a new bell, maybe the joint is just a little loose and it kind of wiggles around. This is a great way to add a little extra stuff inside of your socket, the joint socket, so that when you stick it together it will stay and it won't wiggle around. Or if your corks are literally falling apart and they're about to fall off your clarinet, you can use this method to hopefully help them stay on at least until you can get it to a repair shop. Another option is you can use a thing called plumber's tape or Teflon. These are sort of like really thin strips, thin sticky strips that you can wrap around your mouth or the cork, and it will do the exact same thing that paper did. It's maybe a little more high tech, but it does the same thing. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I'm just gonna quick walk through all of the things we did. We talked about 1 and 1. We test here and here to make sure it's closed all the way. If we need to, we adjust the bridge key to make sure that everything is lined up and it closes. It doesn't matter if your bridge key is perfectly lined up. It just matters what closes your 1 and 1. All right. We talked about fixing our B key so our left B closes all the way. If it's not closing all the way, you take your right thumb and brace underneath this little metal pad right there. And you take your left thumb and you very gently wiggle or bend this key back into place. You test it out. As long as it's not popping or clicking, and as long as it can come out, you're good. Okay, we talked about A. We want to be very careful of the screw on the G sharp key. We want there to be a tiny bit of give before the A key pushes up. Okay, we talked about maybe we get a little water in our register key. The high notes don't come out. We just suck it out. The same thing is true if you ever have water coming out of any of your other holes. You can just suck the water out and then swab your clarinet. If you've tried all of those things and your clarinet still isn't making sound, it's still not working, you can, brute force. You take the whole clarinet apart, you try to figure out where the leak might be. If you can't form a seal, a vacuum like I just did, then that means that there is a leak somewhere. Or if you blow air, really gently, and there is a leak, then you know it's coming from somewhere. And then you just figure out which hole it is. It's a little trial and error, but it will tell you what to do. If that happens, that might need to go to a repair shop. But all these other things do not need a repair shop. Finally, I talked very briefly about helping keep your corks on if they're falling off, or if you maybe have just like a loose joint because you got a new barrel or mouthpiece or bell. You just use a little piece of paper or some plumber's tape, something like that. So anyway, that's all of the really basic repair stuff that you can do on your own at home. I do this for my own clarinet all the time. I've helped my students learn how to do this. If you ever get stuck, try these things out. Your band director can help you. Somebody at home might be able to help you. If you're ever really stuck or don't know what to do, that's probably when you call a repair person. But for all of these things I just taught you, you can do this all by yourself. You do not need a repair person. So anyway, I hope this has been really helpful. If you have any questions for me or want to get in touch, you can get in touch with me through email or through your band teacher. And then if you are ever interested in lessons, you can get in touch with me. I love working with new students so that I can teach you how to do all of this stuff, and then you can be really self-sufficient and handle it all on your own. So I hope this has been really helpful, and I hope that you are able to put this into action at some point. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.